It was a warm Sunday afternoon in Texas when I found the letter in the attic. An unmarked envelope, yellowed from age, tucked inside a dusty shoebox that belonged to my late father. The handwriting looked eerily familiar. I tore it open, expecting old family memories or perhaps something sentimental. But instead, I found something that shattered my entire identity. It read, "To whoever finds this,
I'm sorry.
I should have told you sooner, but the truth would have destroyed this family." The letter was signed by my mother, and the secret it held changed everything I thought I knew about my family, about myself. For 20 years, I had lived a lie, protected by silence, wrapped in love, but poisoned by betrayal. I dropped the letter. My hands were trembling. I could hear my heartbeat in my ears. And all I could think was, why didn't anyone tell me? Have you ever found out something about your family that made you question your entire life? Let me take you back to where it all began. Growing up in Austin, Texas, our house was the classic American dream on the outside. White picket fence, a cherry red mailbox, and Christmas lights that went up the day after Thanksgiving without fail. Inside, it was all smiles, home-cooked meals, and what felt like unconditional love. My dad, Thomas Walker, was a high school chemistry teacher, quiet, bookish, with a dry sense of humor that only my mom really appreciated. My mom, Evelyn Walker, was the heart of the home. PTA president, Sunday church volunteer, the type of woman who made everyone feel seen. And then there was me, Ashley Walker, their only child, or so I believed. I always thought we were close. Every Friday was movie night. Every birthday, no matter how small, came with balloons and handwritten cards. My dad used to leave me notes in my lunchbox with silly chemistry puns. "You're sodium fine. You must be made of copper and tellurium, because you're CUT." Those memories, they used to make me smile. Now, I just wonder, were those notes meant to distract me from something deeper? Was their love genuine, or just carefully constructed? We had a tradition. Every year on my birthday, Mom and I would go through old photo albums. She'd tell me stories from when I was little. "Your first steps were in the backyard. You screamed when grass touched your feet," she'd laugh. Or, "Your dad cried when you said dada before mama." He never let me live that down. Those memories felt so intimate, so real. But after that letter, I started questioning everything. Were those stories even about me? Or was it just a script they'd rehearsed so well they forgot it wasn't the truth? Looking back, the signs were there, tiny cracks in the facade that I brushed off as nothing. It started subtly. Whispers behind closed doors. Quick glances exchanged between my parents when certain topics came up. But I never questioned them. Why would I? One moment that always sticks out. I was 15, helping my mom sort through old boxes in the attic. We found a dusty photo album labeled Summer '03. I flipped it open and paused. "Mom, who is this baby?" I asked. The photo showed a newborn in my dad's arms, wrapped in a navy blue blanket. But something felt off. "That's you, sweetheart," she replied without missing a beat, her smile a little too tight. "No, it's not," I said, pointing to the corner. "It says Michael on the blanket." Her eyes darted away for just a second before she chuckled.
Oh,
"That must have been a hand-me-down. You know how thrifty we were." At the time, I laughed with her. But now I know that moment meant something. Another time, during a church fundraiser, I saw my dad speaking with a woman I'd never met. She had soft brown curls and the same hazel eyes as him. When I approached, she walked away quickly. I asked who she was. Dad's answer? "Just someone from the PTA. She's got a kid in kindergarten." Except I later found out there was no such name on the PTA list. And then there were the phone calls. Late-night calls that ended as soon as someone picked up. Once, I saw my dad delete a voicemail while I stood right next to him. When I asked what it was, he said, "Spam. You know how these robots won't leave us alone." But spam doesn't leave voicemails that say, "I can't keep this secret forever, Tom." The distance grew. Suddenly, they stopped letting me come with them to certain family events. Like Uncle Jim's retirement party in Dallas. "Too many adults, honey. You'll be bored," they told me. I stayed home, alone. while they celebrated without me. I even remember how my birthday changed. My 16th was meant to be special, but Mom forgot to order the cake. Dad forgot to pick up my friends. When I cried in my room that night, I overheard them arguing. Not about me, but about whether she's starting to notice too much. At school, I was the cheerful girl, always smiling, cracking jokes. But at home, something had shifted. There was a new tension in the air, one I couldn't explain. Like my presence made them nervous. Like they were always waiting for something to explode. And worst of all, they stopped saying, "I love you" first. I'd say it before bed, every night. "Good night, love you." And every night, they'd just say, "Sleep tight." It's funny how the absence of a few words can feel louder than a scream. I was 17. It was a quiet Sunday, too quiet. My parents had left for the grocery store, and I was home alone, cleaning out drawers for a school project on family history. I wasn't looking for secrets. Just old documents, maybe a birth certificate or some medical records. That's when I found it, tucked in the back of the filing cabinet, behind a stack of utility bills and expired coupons. A manila folder. No label. Just there. I opened it. Inside were hospital forms, birth records. My eyes scanned the page, and I froze. Infant: Abigail May Turner. Mother: Meredith Jensen. Father: unknown. Date of birth: July 14th, 2006. Hospital: Cedar Creek Medical, Nashville, Tennessee. Wait. My birthday is July 14th, 2006. My mom's name is Lisa, not Meredith. What the hell was this? I kept flipping. Next, a custody petition. Filed by Thomas and Lisa Thompson, my parents. The document stated, "The undersigned hereby request full custody of minor child, Abigail May Turner, born to Meredith Jensen." It was like the world around me slowed down. I felt the blood drain from my face. My hands shook as I turned to the last page, a photo clipped to a notarized statement. A woman. Young. Pale blue eyes, curly hair. A sadness in her smile. Underneath it, voluntary termination of parental rights, Meredith Jensen. I dropped everything. My real name was Abigail May Turner, not Rachel Thompson. My parents weren't my parents. Not biologically anyway. I ran to my room and slammed the door shut. I didn't cry. Not yet. I couldn't feel anything except numb. When they got home, I didn't say a word. I just handed Mom the folder. She went pale. Dad whispered, "Where did you find this?" I didn't answer. All I said was, "Who is Meredith Jensen?" The silence in that room could have suffocated us. Mom sat down. Her voice cracked. She was a friend of the family. Young. Alone. She couldn't raise a child, and we were trying for years. "Why didn't you tell me?" "Because we wanted you to feel safe. To feel like ours. And we were afraid. Afraid that one day, you'd leave us." Dad added, "We never lied to hurt you. We just waited too long." Waited too long? They waited 17 years. And then Mom said something that broke me. She's been trying to contact you. She sent letters. We didn't give them to you." What? We didn't know what she'd say. We were scared she'd confuse you. That's when the tears came. Hot. Heavy. Because it wasn't just about the lie. It was about the choice. They had chosen to hide her from me. To hide me from me. I wasn't Rachel. I was Abigail. And I had a mother out there who'd been trying, begging to reach me. And I never even knew. That night, I couldn't sleep. The house felt unfamiliar, like a museum of a life that wasn't truly mine. The name Rachel echoed in my head like a distant nickname. But Abigail, it haunted me. It felt like mine, like it had always been. At 3 a.m., I knocked on my parents' bedroom door. Dad opened it, hair tousled, eyes heavy with regret. "I need the letters," I said. He didn't argue. He just nodded slowly, walked past me into the attic, and came down 10 minutes later holding a faded shoebox. Inside were 18 letters, one for every birthday. Each envelope had a small, elegant cursive. To my darling Abigail. My hands trembled as I opened the first one, dated July 14th, 2007, my first birthday. My sweet Abigail, you are 1 year old today. I wonder what you look like. Do you have my eyes? Do you laugh like I used to when I was little? I hope you're safe. I hope you're warm. I hope you're loved. I didn't give you away because I didn't love you. I gave you to them because I loved you more than myself. I was 19, homeless, alone. But you? You deserved better than I could offer. One day, I hope you'll understand. Happy birthday, my angel. Love forever. Meredith, your birth mom. I didn't even realize I was crying until my tears smudged the ink. Letter after letter, year after year, she poured her soul onto paper. She wrote about her hopes for me. She wrote about her dreams, her recovery, how she got clean, how she got her GED, how she went to nursing school. She told me how every July she'd light a candle and whisper, "Happy birthday, Abigail," into the night sky. And with every word I read, a version of her came alive. Not a stranger, not a mistake, but a woman who never stopped loving me. One letter, my 10th birthday, hit harder than the rest. 10 years ago, I held you for 5 minutes before they took you away. You had the softest skin. You looked at me with these big, curious eyes. I whispered, "I'll never stop looking for you." And I haven't. I wonder if you know who you are yet. If you're asking questions. If you felt that strange ache that something's missing, that there's a piece of your soul out there, just waiting to be named. I pray one day you'll find this letter. That when you do, you'll hear me whispering still, "I love you. I always have. I always will. Meredith." That was the night I stopped feeling angry. The rage didn't disappear, but it cracked, just enough for compassion to leak through. Because now I had her voice. Not just the truth, but her voice. And she wasn't a shadow anymore. She was real. Meredith Jensen. My biological mother. My mystery. My miracle. My heartbreak. And I knew one thing for sure. I had to find her. The next morning I didn't eat. Didn't talk. I just stared at her handwriting. That looping M in Meredith, it was starting to feel familiar. Like I had seen it before, somewhere deep in a dream. I pulled out my laptop, opened a blank Google tab, and typed slowly. Meredith Jensen. Registered nurse. Age 38 to 42. Boston, Massachusetts. 243,000 results. I started digging through each one like I was panning for gold. There were dozens of Meredith Jensens. But none felt right. Some were in Minnesota. Some were teachers. One had a YouTube cooking channel. Nothing clicked. Then I tried the state nursing license database.
Boom.
Meredith L. Jensen RN. Licensed. Active. Boston General Hospital. I sat there frozen, staring at the screen. She was only 11 miles away. My heart thudded. What if she didn't want to see me? What if she moved on? What if I destroyed the fragile balance she'd finally built? But her letters said the opposite. She wanted me to find her. I borrowed my mom's car without asking. Drove downtown like I was possessed. Boston General loomed large. White stone, glass, and a never-ending stream of nurses and patients passing in and out. I walked up to the information desk. "Hi," I said, my voice shaky. "I'm looking for, Meredith Jensen. She's a nurse here." The receptionist glanced at her monitor. "What's your relation?" I hesitated. "I think I'm her daughter." Her eyebrows lifted. She typed something quickly. "She's on the 4th floor. Pediatrics." My knees nearly buckled. I rode the elevator in silence, heart pounding so loud it drowned out every other sound. The doors slid open. I stepped into a softly lit hallway filled with cartoon murals and children's laughter in the distance. And there she was. At the end of the hallway, in blue scrubs, dark hair pulled into a bun, talking to a little boy, smiling gently. I couldn't move, couldn't breathe.
She looked like me.
She turned, noticed me standing there, froze. For a long moment, we just stared at each other. Then her hand rose to her mouth. Tears welled in her eyes. And in a voice that cracked open my soul, she whispered, "Abigail?" I nodded. And in 3 quick steps, we were in each other's arms. She smelled like peppermint and hand sanitizer. She shook as she held me. And I did too. She pulled back, eyes searching mine. "I've waited so long for this," she whispered. "I got your letters," I said. "All of them." She started sobbing. Not the loud, dramatic kind, but quiet, deep sobs that carried 16 years of silence and sacrifice. We sat down in the staff lounge. No words, just 1,000 questions in our eyes. She told me about rehab, about recovery, about every birthday she cried through without me, about how she never stopped hoping, even when everyone told her to give up. And I told her about my life, the good parts, the hard parts, the part where I never felt like I fully belonged until now. We were both broken. But somehow, sitting there, we weren't anymore. The next few weeks passed in a kind of dream. We met almost every evening after her shift. She'd bring me little things, cookies, coffee, old photos in crumpled envelopes. We walked through parks, sat by the harbor, and laughed like we'd been doing it forever. But one question kept crawling under my skin. Who was my father? I didn't want to ruin what we had just started building. But I needed to know. One afternoon, while we sat in her tiny kitchen, the sunlight falling through lace curtains and hitting a dusty stack of mail, I finally asked, "Meredith, who is he?" She froze. Her spoon paused mid-stir in her coffee. "You said in one of your letters that you never told him I was born." She nodded slowly, putting the spoon down gently, like the weight of the question had made it too heavy to hold. "Yes," she said, her voice low. "I never told him." "Why?" Her eyes filled with a kind of sorrow that felt ancient. "Because he was dangerous, Abigail. Not in the way you might think. Not violent. Not criminal. Just dangerous to himself. To anyone who loved him." "What was his name?" She hesitated. Then finally, "Lucas Bennett." The name meant nothing to me. No spark. No recognition. Just 5 syllables that carried decades of silence. "He was brilliant," she continued. "Charming. Magnetic. But he was unpredictable. He'd disappear for weeks. Come back with stories. Always chasing the next big thing, an idea, a business, a drug, a woman. I didn't want you to grow up with that." I could see the regret etched in her face. "I was weak then," she added. "And I was afraid. If he found out about you, I wasn't sure he'd walk away again. Or worse, I wasn't sure he wouldn't." I stared at her, trying to hold 2 truths in my mind at once. That she'd kept me safe. And that she'd also kept part of me hidden from him, from myself. "Is he still alive?" "I don't know," she whispered. "Last I heard, he was somewhere in upstate New York, running some weird meditation retreat. Or maybe it was a conspiracy podcast. It was always something new." I pulled out my phone, fingers twitching. "Do you want to find him?" she asked gently. I looked up at her. "I think I have to." That night, I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, whispering the name Lucas Bennett like a spell. Was he out there? Did he know I existed? Would he want to? Somehow, I already knew. Finding my mom was just the beginning. Because the other half of my story was still out there, waiting. I didn't tell Meredith right away. But the same night she told me his name, I started looking. Lucas Bennett. It was a common enough name to be a curse and specific enough to haunt me. I found an old Facebook page, inactive since 2015. A YouTube channel with a few grainy videos about spiritual detox and rewiring masculine energy. And finally, a podcast episode from 6 months ago. Lucas Bennett, The Wounded Warrior's Path. I listened with shaking hands. He was older, slower in his speech than I expected. But the voice had a strange pull. Confident, coaxing, familiar in a way that made my heart ache. "We carry wounds from our parents," he said in the episode. "But sometimes we carry wounds we didn't even know we had." It felt like he was speaking directly to me. Was that delusional? Maybe. But I couldn't ignore it. I traced the podcast back to a mailing address in Woodstock, New York, a wellness center called the Ash Tree Foundation. I didn't tell anyone. Not even Ava. 3 days later, I was on a Greyhound bus headed north, watching the city dissolve behind me. The retreat was tucked between trees, wrapped in fog and incense. Wind chimes clanged softly as I approached the reception. A young man in a flowing beige sweater greeted me. "Here for a session?" "I'm looking for someone." "Lucas Bennett." He smiled, serene. "Lucas doesn't see everyone. He chooses who he speaks to." I nodded. "Tell him Abigail Walker is here." The name sat heavy on my tongue. He raised an eyebrow, scribbled it onto a clipboard, and motioned for me to wait. Minutes passed. Then an hour. Then, "Abigail?" The voice was gravelly, hesitant. I turned, and there he was.
Tall, gaunt.
His hair silver, tied in a low bun, wearing linen, like he'd stepped out of a dream or a cult. Our eyes locked, and something shifted between us. Not recognition, but resonance. "You look just like her," he murmured. I didn't speak.
Couldn't.
"Meredith," he said, as if confirming to himself. We stood there, two strangers tethered by DNA and regret. "I think I'm your daughter," I finally said. He chuckled, softly, bitterly. I knew. Not for sure. But I always had this feeling. There was a silence in Meredith's goodbye that felt like it was hiding something. I took a shaky breath. "What now?" He looked out toward the trees, the wind catching the hem of his robe. "Now we sit.
We talk.
And we see if blood is enough." We sat across from each other in a sun-drenched room lined with books and Tibetan bowls. No one else was around. Just me, Lucas, and the ghosts between us. He poured us tea. Ginger and lemon balm. "I used to dream," he began, "that I had a daughter. She had your eyes, but she was always running away from me." I said nothing. "You must have questions," he added.
I did.
"For years. But now I'm not sure they matter." He nodded, slowly. "That's fair." But then I spoke, not because I needed answers, but because the silence was too loud. "Why didn't you fight for her?"
For me.
Lucas looked down at his hands. They trembled slightly. I was 23.
Broke.
Scared. Addicted to validation more than substances, if I'm honest. Meredith told me she was leaving, and I didn't chase her because I thought it would be easier to pretend it didn't matter. He laughed under his breath, bitterly. I thought I was freeing her. I swallowed hard. "You weren't freeing her. You were abandoning us." That landed. He didn't deny it. "I didn't think I was father material," he whispered. And then years passed. I convinced myself she had married someone else. That some other man was tucking you into bed. I blinked away the sting in my eyes.
She didn't marry anyone, I said.
She raised me alone. She was everything. Lucas leaned back. I figured that. She always had more courage than I did. I didn't know what to say to that. So I asked the question that scared me most. "Do you even want to know me now?" He looked straight into my soul when he said it. "I don't want to deserve you. I want to honor you. If you'll let me." Tears finally broke free, hot and silent. There wasn't a hallmark moment. No embrace. No resolution. Just an agreement, quiet and tentative. We would try. But something deeper whispered beneath it all. Trying doesn't undo time. Trying doesn't erase absence. It simply begins something new. And sometimes, that has to be enough. If you've ever discovered a truth that shattered everything you thought you knew, if you've ever had to rebuild your identity from broken pieces, you're not alone. This isn't just my story. It's a reflection of how silence can rot the roots of a family. But truth has a strange power. It hurts, yes, but it also heals if you let it. Tell me in the comments, have you ever uncovered a family secret that changed everything? Let's not suffer in silence anymore. Because sometimes strangers on the internet can understand us more than the people who share our blood.
Like, subscribe,
and share this video with someone who needs to hear it. Because your story deserves to be heard too.